this meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
John Moreland.
Here.
Owen Curley.
Here.
Alexi Gonzalez. Here. Jeff Trular.
Here.
Todd Smith.
Here.
Jennifer Williams. Matt Metz.
Here.
Thank you. The Board of Adjustment meetings are quasi-judicial in nature. All decisions of the board will be based on competent, substantial evidence, including testimony provided in this meeting. Any person who is not an applicant or agent who wishes to speak will need to fill out a speaker's card located on the side table by the door and turn them into the clerk. Each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each item. Please refrain from speaking from the audience, and applause or cheering will not be allowed. And lastly, please silence your cell phones. Moving on to approval of minutes. Should John know that we have any this time around?
No minutes this time.
Any correspondence?
Nothing other than what was in the packet already.
And since there is no old business on this meeting's agenda, I will call the first case of new business.
Board calls BOA 23-100006. Property address 824 18th Avenue North. Motion to consider 34-336E1C2 for an easterly side yard setback of 9.4 feet and a westerly side yard setback of 7.9 feet, both in lieu of 10 feet minimum. 34-336E1D for no garage in lieu of one-car garage required in a living area of 1,564 square feet in lieu of 1,600 square feet required, and 34-336E1E for lot coverage of 47% in lieu of 35% maximum to allow for the enclosure of an existing one-car garage and to rectify existing nonconformities and existing single-family dwelling.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
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 And I've had none. Will the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Andrea Lambert, 450 Poplar Point Drive. I am representing the homeowners, David and Trina Middleton, and what we're trying to accomplish here is to build a second story over their existing garage. It will use a portion of that garage and a second story above it to create more living space. So technically it takes away that full garage space. The homeowners do have a very long driveway with ample parking for cars so they won't be on the street or anything. And even though it doesn't technically conform as far as being in line with the other houses on the street, we have pictures of all the other houses on the street, and without the garage it does conform for their street.
Thank you. Can you tell us the nature of the hardships at this property that would necessitate this variance?
Okay, so the hardships is for the family specifically. So they had a family situation where they had to adopt 3 more children from family members, and so now they're looking to build on so they have more bedroom space for the kids to live.
And I understand from the staff report that in terms of hardships on the property itself, that there are hardships including that the overall area of the property is undersized?
Yes, so what we have is based on it would take it the living area from 1,564 and in lieu of the 1,600 square feet required for the garage.
So may I ask if both storage and living, the places you're converting to livable space, so both spaces are for, and it only takes you less than 1,600 of all that added space?
Correct.
And you're getting the extra living space because of the fact that you're getting rid of the garage and you're building a second
A
story.
portion of the garage, so a portion of the garage will stay.
Have you
But
talked to
yes.
the neighbors? Have your clients talked to the neighbors?
Mhm.
And what is their reaction?
So we actually have, the homeowner is here to speak and as well as one of the neighbors, but all of the neighbors, they seem good with it. As most of them already have this change. Like, I have pictures of them, they've either like converted their garages or they don't have a garage and they only have a carport or something like that.
You mentioned that there's ample parking without the use of the garage.
Yes,
As a garage, do you know specifically how many cars?
about four cars can fit in the garage, in the driveway.
Driveway.
Mhm.
And was there any reason why you didn't want to re-establish a carport to be conforming in that space that's buildable, looks like, for?
It's just-
Oh, you need to like
Why did you
add
add
a
that?
carport to the front?
Correct.
Mainly because there's only one window in the kitchen, so if we were to do that, it takes all the light out of the kitchen.
Thank you.
And no plans to alter anything in the backyard?
No,
Just curious, Al, if you're not really covering more area, how it jumps from 35 to 47% on the lot coverage? Is that something that's pre-existing?
oh, that's pre-existing, yeah, that's pre-existing, in the backyard.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions of the applicant
I have none.
I have
for
none.
now? Okay. You can be seated and I will open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you so much.
I believe you said you do not have any speakers cards?
We do not have any speakers cards or correspondence.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card that wishes to speak on this item? If so, please fill out a speaker's card before you leave.
I think she just turned mine in.
Oh, okay. And you can be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Trina Middleton, and 824 18th Avenue North. So, yeah, my husband and I,
And I'm sorry, you are the homeowner?
yes ma'am.
Okay, so we won't consider this actually part of the public hearing, so because you're the homeowner, we just won't hold you to the 3-minute time limit. You'll just be able to tell us
Okay.
why you're requesting this variance.
Yep, so my husband and I moved here almost 11 years ago and purchased the home just the way it is, pretty much done some interior remodeling and things, but as Ms. Lambert said, we adopted 3 children, and so in a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, it's just been really tight. Obviously, knowing that our property is small already, going out anymore was not an option. The garage and our dining area are the only 2 areas of the home that have a flat roof, so it made sense to just go up there, put 2 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs for our new girls, and be able to convert an actual laundry room and half bath downstairs for more living space for the kiddos. For us looking at how it would least impact the imprint of the current square footage of the yard in the home, we felt like that was kind of the best option. Our neighbors to the, well, actually our neighbors on each side, to the west and the east of us, were the only 2 on our 2-block radius that have carports. Every other home from 8th to 10th has converted their garage and has no garage or carport, no garage door or anything. So it won't change the exterior look of our home. We'll still have about, I'm not sure of the actual square footage, but maybe 10 feet deep of garage, which we'll use for storage and keep a garage door there on the front. But we've never used it as a car garage because it's so narrow anyway. But that's why we're here to see if we can get that variance.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of the owner at this time?
I have none.
One question, would it be okay if this was approved, we can connect it to the existing structure and approval? What means if the approval would happen just the existing structure, if something was happening down the road and the structure was, these applications would only apply to this existing structure.
In other words, you couldn't bulldoze your house and rebuild on the
So
same
this,
specs.
that's what we're trying, thank you for that.
Yes.
Yeah, Thank you.
That won't happen in my lifetime.
questions of Ms. Middleton? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve BOA 23-10006. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request is met all the standards for variance is outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code. And I also move that the variance attached to the existing structure, or be conditioned on the existing structure, excuse me.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I think you have a non-conforming lot, they're trying to correct their mistakes. It seems that they're not being aggressive in asking for more lot coverage, and then it's already there. This house has been there for a very long time, and I'm sure the non-conformities have been there just as long.
I agree.
Yes, and I know that, I'm sure we certainly empathize with the personal situation of the applicant, but as we know, our findings of fact cannot be based on, personal circumstances. So taking that aside, I do think that the fact that the home is already as small as it is, and even making these additions will still make it a relatively small home in terms of square footage. And as you mentioned, they're not increasing the lot coverage. Certainly, makes this adhere to the criteria of minimum possible request. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
John Moylan,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your request has been approved. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100-007, property address 117 Second Avenue South. Motion to consider 34-345E3 for a rear yard setback of 5 feet in lieu of 15 feet minimum to allow for construction of a new multifamily structure.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
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 Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
My name's Robert Gray. My address is 5211 Pine Rocklands Avenue, Lithia, Florida.
Thank you. Can you please tell us the nature of your hardship at this property?
There's an existing house that's been there for about 100 years, and it's an attractive house to the front. It's kind of long, and it covers much of the lot, and so that's currently used as a residence that would stay. I'm sorry, you asked what again?
The hardship on the property?
The hardship is that we have, that building is important to us. We have space in the back, and our plan is to remove those two smaller buildings. But the hardship is that it gives us a fairly small building footprint available to us. And because we're trying to keep the nature of the front of the house similar to the way it is now, which is has a nice street face, pedestrian oriented, to get the ability to park 4 cars off site, we need to accommodate that from the alley side. So our intention is to take this CBD district house and basically use it for 2 houses. And so to be able to build a second primary structure at the rear side of the house, we're requesting some relief on the back side. Currently I think it's a 15-foot rear setback. We have a building that's there that we're going to remove is 3.3 feet 2 inches, so we're not trying to do that much. But we'd like to maintain about a space of 10 feet between the two buildings so that there's kind of a comfortable space. Down the road, they're gonna probably have a pool in that area that's left over, that's sort of forward. And to be able to get those 4 spaces, I sort of did the math backwards. To be able to get 4 cars in a garage, if I'm 5 feet from that spot, it allows me to put 4 cars in a garage. And my preference would be to have them in the garage, then 2 in a garage and 2 kind of in a covered area or such as it is. So that's I think it would make for a more attractive alley side. And so the hardship is relative to the way the property was purchased, I'd say.
I notice on the aerial view that there is what appears to be a paved space for maybe 2 cars on the, I guess it's maybe the south of the property.
That's true.
Evan Avenue South, yes.
It would have space for it, but our intention is to have a pool. So to be able to get a pool, that's just gonna be basically kind of like a nice yard area is our intent.
So that was gonna be my question, are you going to sod over where that's paved currently?
I haven't asked, but we take it under advisement. Do you need to make that a requirement, or?
No, I'm just curious how some of the,
Through the chair, are you referring to this area right here?
yeah.
Okay, that's actually in the right of way, that's not on the property.
So if somebody parks there, I don't get credit for it from a car requirement standpoint.
Okay,
And if it's in the right of way, then if we were to change it, we would have had to get a right of way permit.
sure.
I think it's been there as long as they've been there.
So is it a multi-structure currently with that building in the back?
Say that a little bit.
Is it multi-family right now with that building in the back currently?
It could be, but they're not really using it to the
Okay.
extent they could.
But it was built and designed, it could have, at one point it might have been?
I believe it might have been.
And I see here by your notes, it's verifying what you said, you're now moving to a 5-yard setback, and currently it's 2.3?
The
Existing?
the non-conforming aspect is 3 feet 2 inches from the rear side,
Current, right now,
current.
and you're
So
moving to 5
we're okay with giving a little more space.
on. And the pool's gonna go to the left, okay.
So the pool would be to the north side of that building.
What is the road or alleyway that's behind it up there? What is that?
There's a lot of folks who access from the alley side, but basically, this is a 53-foot wide, 125-foot long lot. But on the back side, there's a paved alley that a lot of people use, but,
So the other vehicle would have to access from that direction, and the other 4 vehicles at the next property that you're proposing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
When the drawing, you've got the 4 cars underneath the building, they would have to come from that way, correct?
They'd have no choice, that's true.
Okay.
And there's no access issue on the alley, we'll
It's-
be able to,
It's, I would guess it's 22-ish feet wide, 20 feet wide of concrete that goes from block to block. In terms of the alley, it's paved, it runs the length of that block.
And is it 2-way or 1-way?
I'm not sure if it's designated, but I'd be guessing.
So would they had guests in there, where would they park? In the alley?
I guess they would look the garage.
No, I'm saying if the cars are in the garage and they had guests over entertaining, whatever, where would anybody park? Would they block the alley?
I don't know. I don't know that they probably have to park on the street somewhere else. And just walk to the house.
Or they have to walk to the front property then? You're saying the street in front, they'd park out there on Second Avenue and then walk to the back residence?
Well, when you have a 53-foot wide property, getting 4 cars on there, that's part of the reason why we're also limiting it to 2 structures, because it's about the reasonable limit. But
I understand how they're gonna park their own vehicles, barring them getting more than what they should have, but if anybody comes, where would they park?
they probably park in the right-of-way on the 2nd Street.
And then have to walk access to the first residence to get there?
The yard would be able to access from both sides, so from the alley or the front. So you, where the pool would be, there's still gonna be a gate, there's gonna be ability to walk past that. So the people, the family that owns the property, they're relatives to each other, so they're kind of using the outdoor space together.
I guess in reverse, we have to park in the back to walk in, technically the park. You have to park in the back to get to the front, not reverse.
Those two spots,
There's 2 spots,
They would-
all parking's for front and back, right? 4 spots are for.
those
both
4
sides.
spots, basically the 4 spots in the back take care of the requirement of the house to the front, because the ones that are in the right of way don't count. So we're just dealing with, effectively, that's a hardship, that the house that's existing to be able to, it doesn't have a garage the way it is now.
You mentioned something about a pool.
There's a kind of a, I forget how big, but there's about a 22-foot space to the one side there. You can see it on the left side of that where the existing house is. So the thing that extends out it probably would be removed at some point, but there's effectively a 70 by 20 space, and they would just design it from within that. That hasn't been designed, but we're not fighting lot coverage, so.
Was there any thoughts about extending that front right away into a drive on the side of the house?
If you do that, then it
Requirements.
just means you're gonna have a smaller opportunity for a pool, but
But I mean,
that wasn't their preference anyway.
right now, we're looking at meets the requirements.
That would meet the requirements, yes.
Thank you.
And I think this is more of a question for staff, but I'm assuming since there's no parking related variance in the request, that 4 spots on the property satisfies the requirement for this structure that's proposed here.
Yeah, so for a single family or multifamily, the requirement is 2 spaces per dwelling unit. There's no provision in the code for guest parking or anything like that, so this would be the minimum parking requirement.
Okay.
It's not clear to me on this image, on the backside, I'm not sure if everyone can see at the top there, it shows the 5-foot setback, but that runs into the back of those sort of backside 2 cars. What would be the area that those cars are parked on? Is that gonna be gravel or concrete or grass? Is that area gonna be paved in any way?
There's gonna be conditioned space above that, so there would be columns, so it's effectively like a carport, and I would imagine it would be paver or something of that nature. But it would not, but it's gonna be covered by a building, so it doesn't have bearing, it's gonna be impervious space based on that. But the surface, would be something impervious though.
And I know that this is just a drawing, but to your point, if the renderings of the 2 vehicles kind of double parked, maybe the cars are not to scale, but this is showing the 2 vehicles being like in that 5-foot buffer.
Well, in that particular drawing where it's a carport, that was not our goal to do that. That was one of the initial drawings I provided, and then when we provided our application, we had something differently. But basically, our intent was to have a 4-car garage and then not have that carport the way that particular drawing depicts. But if I needed to and I had to go that route, let's say if I had not the 5 feet I'm requesting, let's say if we had less, then I would have to accommodate it differently because I wouldn't be able to get 2 cars into the garage the way I'm positioning. But in that case, because I've got the 2 cars on the lot, I just showed it a garage, it's like 23 feet wide in that particular drawing. I didn't want to go minimum because storage is tight as it is, so.
And again, I mean, there was no parking related variance or provision included in the variance, so I will assume that the structure that's proposed fits 4 cars in accordance with the code. Would that have been accounted for here?
Yeah, so there's enough physical paved area to hold 4 cars. There's no requirement.
As planned.
Right, and there's no requirement in multifamily for an enclosed carport or garage. So yeah, they can be up to the property line just like any other driveway.
I have none.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I will now open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards on this item?
No speaker cards on this one.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak and has not filled out a speaker's card? If so, please fill one out before you leave. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100007. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I know it's technically meets the requirement of parking lot, but I still see a problem. It's gonna happen. Because how often do you think those cars are using their curb like that, where someone can't get out, they're gonna be parking somewhere else? Most of the time. And where are they gonna park? Probably in the alley.
That's true, though I do caution the board against, drifting into code enforcement. Your point is certainly taken, and we don't want to, create potential issues, but I think if they're proposing a parking structure that staff has determined meets the criteria for parking, we do need to consider it as that. And I do think that considering, I know that they have a massive amount of lot coverage that they're allowed in the zoning district, but I do think that reducing the setbacks by 10 feet in the rear when you back up to an alley to accommodate more parking is certainly minimal. I think the neighbors would probably prefer that to them, paving more space in the front and creating something that's maybe inconsistent with the neighborhood.
If my memory is correct, directly across the street, there is, at the entrance to the ocean, a number of parking places that could be available
For guests.
for guests.
Staying on the structure, they're going from 2.5 feet to 5 feet going back and put the cars, I think it's most, see the hardship in it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, go ahead.
My main point of confusion is if the only variance request is the setback of 5 feet, and then we look at the existing structure that will remain and the structure they're proposing, there is substantial space between those two structures remaining. So I don't see how there would be any reason not to shift that forward such that they meet the minimum or closer to that minimum from the rear setback.
Is there, I noticed on the site plan that it says 10-foot buffer from existing primary residence. Is that required by
Well, at a minimum, they would need typically 5 feet before they would have to fire rate everything. So even if they did pull it forward, the odds are it would end up being 5 feet between the two structures, so you'd still have a rear setback of 10 instead of 15, unless it became an addition onto the existing structure, which, given the age of that building, I don't know if that is practical, considering it was built in the teens. But I think that would be the only reasonable way to meet that 15-foot setback without a complete redesign of the project. Keep in mind, right now, they have no on-site parking, and they do have 2 legal units on the property.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Owen Crowley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yeah.
John Morland,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your request has been approved. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100008. Property address 2017 3rd Street North. Motion to consider 34-377 for 0 parking spaces in lieu of 3 spaces minimum to allow for construction of a drive-up independent teller machine.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
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 And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Trevor Lee, 1301 River Place Boulevard, Jacksonville, Florida, 32207. I'm the architect and agent for the Evan 121 Financial Credit Union.
Thank you. Can you tell us the nature of the hardships on the property?
Sure. We designed a drive-up ATM for this property, and we wanted to ensure that we wouldn't have people parking on the property. This creates, in some ways, a liability for the client and owner of the property, and we think potentially a nuisance for the neighborhood. So we want to keep cars moving through the site, drive up off of a parking lot or off of the road onto a private property with security and lighting and all that great stuff, so that they can drive through to use the ATM and drive right out. So we think parking creates a potential nuisance, and we want to remove that. We also want to pave as little of the site as we absolutely have to, and since we're not going to have a walk-up ATM on the back of the property, we want to prohibit parking.
Is there plans to beautification of the whole lot eventually, or the whole line? Or?
We do have a landscape plan. We're going to add additional landscaping. The kiosk is only about 10 feet high, and it's got a little canopy over it. I mean, it's so far back in the site, you probably won't even see it. Put some signage on it, but it's for the fact that, in some ways, for regulatory requirement, that we are vacating the Beaches branch of 121 Financial, and we need to provide another location for the customers of 121 Financial at the beach until we can find another permanent branch location.
Have you had a chance to speak to any of the neighbors? There's some neighbors in the back and inside.
We have not.
So you mentioned until you can secure a permanent location. So I think given the unique request here and the unique plans that have been proposed, I would imagine that the board might be inclined to condition the approval based on the existing proposal, or, condition it to the plans as submitted versus having a variance tied to this property in perpetuity that would allow them to have no parking. So are you reasonably planning on, your client, I guess, keeping the ATM there, but not building an actual permanent structure there?
Yeah, there wouldn't be a permanent structure there. There'll be, this ATM, we do have an option that we're working through it right now to have another walk-up ATM off the sidewalk, not on the property. So it would be right off of the sidewalk. Again, we still don't want to allow parking because we want people to park and then come use it. That would be the only additional change we're still considering in terms of the site plan. But once that site plan is fixed, we have no problem with the variance running with the property.
Any other questions?
I think this has been a difficult lot for anybody to make use of.
Yeah.
And I think I've voted against a number of plans over the years, so I was kind of tickled with, and that's a unique idea.
Yeah. So we think it serves both the customers of 121 Financial. It's safer in many ways than putting an ATM in a parking lot. And we get traffic off the road pretty quickly and onto the site. Lots of room to queue cars on the property. But again, we just don't want people hanging out there.
Now, given the proximity to the middle school,
Yeah.
is it going to be something that the kids are likely to use as a place to go hang out and smoke?
I don't know if that's the architect's problem.
I would tell you this, my kids go to that middle school. No.
All right, any other questions of the agent? Okay, you can be seated for
Thank
now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any cards?
We have.
Okay. So if there's anyone who wishes to speak
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Britt Sanders, 2029 3rd Street North. I own the building adjacent to this property, in the picture there, on Seagate. My question for the applicant was the dry pond. Just curious what that was, the design of that. I didn't want it to be some mosquito pond, so I'm assuming dry just is for water retention. And the other question was on the lighting for it, so if they could answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card, but who wishes to speak at this time? Okay, would the agent, like to address the questions made during public comment?
Yeah, happy to. The dry pond, as you know, is a requirement that we retain our impervious surfaces on site. We don't want to create an open pond. I think there's also a safety issue there and a potential pest problem there too. So we do have a dry pond, which basically means we'll have a bioswale. It'll be a depressed area that will capture the water requirements from the runoff from our site. It's not an open pond. And to the second question about lighting, we don't have site lighting. We're not going to have big poles lighting up the drive. We will have lighting around the kiosks so there's safety and there's some visibility to it. But again, the kiosk is very low and it won't be any more lighting than you would see from any other kiosk that's sitting in a parking lot. So there isn't the kind of tall street lighting that you might find in a typical parking lot. Does that satisfy the questions here?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if the member of the public might try to catch up with you afterward for more information, but you guys can tend to that on your own time.
Okay.
Any other questions of the agent?
Thank you.
Okay. I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100008. Based on testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code, and that the motion is conditioned, or the approval is conditioned on the plans that were submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just want to note, I think having those spots for me was at first a question mark around seeing people at ATMs kind of dragging their feet and installing on traffic, but as the applicant indicated, and as I'm looking at the plans, I do think it's nice to see that they did make a large enough loop that cars can AQ to the ATM, and as cars move out, there's time for them to settle themselves before they're back on the street. So I think it's a very interesting use of a non-conventional lot, and I think that the applicant has done everything within the code that meets the standard of this being a minimum viable use of that property. So.
I would agree, and piggybacking off of that, not only do I think having the structure further back on the property makes it better for customer traffic flow, but I think it also probably makes for a nice or nicer line of sight from the road than having a big metal kiosk right up on 3rd Street. This will be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I would imagine. Any other discussion? All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yeah.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your application has been approved. Can you call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100009. Property address 3090 Sunshine Court. Motion to consider 34-337 E1C2 for a corner side yard setback of 10 feet in lieu of 13.4 feet required. 34-337 E1E for lot coverage of 50% in lieu of 35% maximum to allow for construction of a new single-family dwelling and swimming pool.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none. I've had none.
I've had none.
But none.
I've had none.
And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please be sworn in and give your testimony?
Yes,
Mike Hanna, address 134 36th Avenue South, Crest Beach.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you please tell us the nature of the hardship at this property?
Yeah, it's a non-conforming size lot. It's 6,300 feet in lieu of 7,500. And it's a lot that Jack's Beach themselves platted in 2006, so. So the hand that I just gave you, it doesn't address lot coverage, because lot coverage is easy, you really can't depict that, but there's the front of the house, and I wrote Sunshine Court and Ponce de Leon, so you can tell how this house is situated. And then the little pink asterisk over there on the right-hand side, that second floor bump out is what's gonna be 10 feet in lieu of the 13.4. And every other, the reason I'm asking for 10 is every other lot on Ponce de Leon is a 50-foot lot, and so the corner lots have to be 10 feet or 20%, which is 10 feet. And so we're actually gonna be further away from the corner than all the other houses, even at giving us 10 feet, because our 10 feet is for the second floor bump out. So the first floor is gonna be 12 feet instead of 10 feet. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But from the line of sight down Ponce de Leon, every other house is exactly 10 feet from the property line.
So this will keep it consistent?
It will even be further away from the corner or from the property line, because our 10 feet is the second floor, and it's just a small little bump out, not the entire plane of the house, if that makes sense. So if you look at the second page, I drew a red line at the 10-foot mark, and so the first floor footprint of the house is actually further away than we're asking. And the reason that we are asking for the 10 feet, the reason the second floor bump out counts as setback is because it's walkable square footage. The other bump outs are window seats and they don't go down to the floor. But all the other building restriction lines are in line with
I
codes.
see what you're saying. I don't see the pavilion on this plan you submitted.
Oh, yeah, it's not there because we didn't know what side it was gonna be on and how big it's gonna be.
I forgive me, I struggle with this a little bit because I really don't see a lot of due diligence in the size of this house on our plans we were reading through. I mean, it's a box. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how big is this residence when it's done?
This is like 3,200 feet.
But it's like, I feel like you drew 4 lines on a piece of paper that says where I want to go, get to 50%. I mean, I see.
Well, so
Thank you.
the 50% gets us a pool and it gets us a regular driveway instead of strips.
How do you say a pool when I don't see anything around the pool and the 50% of the pool doesn't go against your lot coverage?
Because it's not drawn on there yet. It's not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the due diligence struggle, I struggle a
Oh,
little bit.
I've already spent so much money getting to this point. It's not even, the plans are for the most part complete for the house. We haven't designed the property yet.
What you've done so far, I'm just trying to understand, so how I read it.
Yeah.
Again, I'm struggling with trying to understand. And even this scale, this drawing doesn't have much scale to it, I'm trying to understand. The one you submitted to us.
Yeah, that one's got a lot of scale to it.
But I mean, scale, but, again, I'm just reading now first time about.
I think the reason that Mr. Trular has brought this up is that if we are to consider, there's no doubt that you have an undersized lot.
Yeah.
But if we are to consider the criteria that we have to weigh these requests against, we have to determine if you have requested the minimum possible variance that you can make work on this property. A 3,200 square foot home is a pretty nice sized home. And if this were a standard lot versus a substandard lot, the home would actually be over the minimum or the maximum lot coverage. So I think,
I'm not sure what you mean. The home would be over the maximum lot coverage.
if this home were on a standard size lot,
Yeah.
it would take up over 35% of the lot.
The home?
It
it's
would
the,
make the case if it was 35% on a standard lot, but if what you're asking for would be more than what's allowed on a standard lot, then it begs the question of, is this the minimum request that you could have put forth?
oh, I can build a 1,600 square foot house, which is the minimum, 1,200 square foot house, which is the minimum for RS2, but, I mean, no one's gonna wanna buy that. I'm not sure I understand that. Now, we're basically trying to build according to the market, and I understand that the word profit is not allowed to be thrown out, but with the cost of the lot that we paid to the city for, and the cost of construction, anything less than the number of bedrooms and bathrooms that we've got in here would not be a sellable house. I'm not sure I'm understanding.
Well, it's hard to define that where you're gonna be at percentage-wise exactly, because there's nothing to scale at all.
Correct. So, and on a new house, I mean, I don't have the exact pool deck designed yet, and I don't.
Okay, so I'm just wondering why you're here now, because you don't have anything laid out to tell us what it's gonna be. We're guessing at it.
Right, that's why I'm asking for 50%, so we have that to work with. So the problem, it's not a problem, because we bought into this, but one of the stipulations of this particular lot, and all three of them, that are the other two coming up, we had 6 months to get this done from the time it was purchased, or the city's gonna take it back from us. So and I'm not trying to say anything negative about what you're doing, but if it doesn't get approved, I have to give the lot back to the city, and I lose about $30,000. So I'm not trying to say you have to approve what I've asked for, but it sounds like if I would have asked for anything over 35%, then you would have questioned what I'm asking for. So I'm just trying to, you know, I'm trying to foresee what we might need for a pool and amenities in the backyard and a full driveway. Most of it's gonna be the driveway. I'm just not.
Yes, sir. So we certainly would not question, I mean, well, technically, yes, if you're asking for anything over 35%, of course you would need a variance, and we would have to question why you were asking for it, and
Just try not to come back again.
and we understand that, but we have 6 specific criteria that these requests have to meet, and just so you know, criteria number 5 states, grant of variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the parcel of land, building, or structure. And in order to determine that the minimum request has been made, there would have to be some sort of due diligence, to borrow a phrase, for you to say, we need 50% because we can't possibly build less than that. And you're making the case from a financial standpoint.
That flies in the face of everybody who comes in here and asks for variance for a pool, because people don't have to build a pool. They don't have to build pavers around the pool. They can put mulch around the pool. So, I mean, I've been building in Jack's Beach for almost 20 years now, and I've come to variance meetings on my free time just to see how things go. So I've seen many variances approved higher than 50% for a pool and a pool deck.
I think what's happened here is that you had submitted some rough plans.
No, this is not rough plans. These are not rough plans.
What we're looking at is rough.
No, they're not. Well, I mean,
I suppose, and let me, so what you've seen for what's been approved are plans that are very specific as to what it is that they want. Here's the pool that I want, here's the deck that I want, here's the shape of the house, and here's how much, so we have this, and we have.
So the footprints,
like this.
the floor plans are done. The floor plans are done. And for this particular house, for 2 of the 3 houses, the floor plans, the elevations, everything is done. I submitted this stuff because I thought, and apparently I was mistaken, that this would have been the easiest to explain what we've got going on. Essentially, the 50% is, we design the house based on the square footage that we want on the house. And then 50% is gonna allow us to design the driveway, the walkway, and the pool, and we have to get all that under 50%. I can certainly ask for less and then come back after we design the hardscape. I'm trying to keep from having to come back.
Let me ask you a question, on just the house you have laid out in the driveway, the pool with no pavers and the pavilion, what percentage are you at?
I don't know.
You need to know that.
I don't know right off the top of my head. I don't know. I know it's less than 50%.
It looks like it's at least.
It's way less than 50%. It's way less than 50%.
Then by your own admission,
Well, we
50% is not.
We haven't designed any of the hardscape yet. I'm basing this on previous jobs that I've done where I know that everything's gonna come in around that. And this is, okay, I'm not sure. I don't know what else.
Could you, I mean, if this were to be postponed?
I can't postpone it. I can't postpone it because here's the deal. If I don't submit for permit by March 31st, I have to give the lots back in Jacks Beach. They're gonna take them back. That's in the deed. That's written in the deed. So I have no extra time.
But if we rolled it to the next hearing?
I don't have that time. I mean, I seriously don't have that time. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you wanted to approve it for a lesser percent, and I'll come back and ask for more, but I'm unlikely to get more.
It'd just be helpful if we knew what the house was and the driveway is existing, just be a bench line and talk. I think, because the pavilion is like, it's a big building there, like.
It's not. So it's definitely not. It's not a big.
20 foot, I'm looking at that drawing, I'm staring at.
It might be 15 feet. I think I've got it 15 feet long by maybe 6 to 8 feet wide. It's basically it's going to have is an outdoor kitchen counter underneath. It's not going to be something where people gather.
I'm not checking out, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
again, what I'm working with is a pavilion is almost 3/4 of the size of the pool by this drawing that's submitted that I'm working with. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you, is like, I think the design of the house is beautiful. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying it's just hard for us to wrap our hands around.
There's certainly evidence here that this property is a good candidate for some relief from code because it is an undersized lot. But knowing that you asked for 50%, basically thinking like, you know, I want to have as much as I possibly can to know what I have to work with, that doesn't rise to the standards that we have to judge these requests against. We need to know that there's a specific reason that you asked for specifically 50% to accomplish what you have to accomplish on this property.
Yeah, okay, then yes, it's for the pool, the driveway, the sidewalk, and the patio or in the back around the pool.
I just don't think, in my tenure, I don't think I've ever had a contract, and John, correct me, but it comes say, on 50%, I'm gonna build to it. Usually they say, well, this is.
So we're kind of under a timeline,
I
which is,
understand that, but
yeah.
again, you entered the agreement knowing this timeline. I mean,
yeah,
you can't.
and that's what I was afraid somebody would say.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand, and we're trying to work with this. But you said you would agree to a lesser, but you don't know
But
where you're at right now, without hardscape, per se.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, so just so you know, I mentioned this before, but in the staff analysis, it says, were this a full-size lot, the lot coverage would be roughly 40%. So I had mentioned the 35 because 35 is the maximum lot coverage percentage that's allowed by code. So if you were requesting, and I'm not a math person, but let's just say, if you were requesting 45%, and 45% would have equaled 35%, then.
So Jacksonville Beach had an opportunity to develop these lots as conforming lots. They had an opportunity. They chose in 2006 to design lots that were non-conforming. That was their choice. And yes, I chose to buy them at auction, So if somebody wants to say, well, shame on you for buying them, then I will eat that.
I don't think that's what we're saying.
No.
So the guy,
Who's next to me?
all the way down at the end, who bought the end lot, was here a couple of hearings ago.
No, we bought the end lot at the end.
It was a different guy. I think.
No, he has the 2 lots next to me.
All right, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had the actual plans, and he knew down to what he needed for lot coverage. And it wasn't speculative. He wasn't saying, I think I need 50, or could I have 50 and I'm gonna build to it. It was like, I'm gonna do this. This is what I'm gonna do. This is how much lot coverage I need down.
Yeah, so my architect's designing three houses for me on that street. And the houses are, for the most part, complete. The houses are done. Everything designing with the houses. We have not designed the hardscape yet.
May I ask through the chair to Christian, how did the city determine it comes out to that percentage? When you said you don't have plans, but the city's saying those plans are at, I'm trying to figure out how that got to that.
Sure, so
configuration.
based on the limited amount of information that we have, we know that the house is, 50 feet wide, because you've got a 67-foot wide lot. You're losing 5 feet on one side, 12 feet on the other. And then guessing that it was roughly 45 feet long, plus the driveway, that's about 37%.
Okay.
And then the pavilion would have taken up another, 200 square feet or something, that would get them close to 40. Nothing in our calculations anticipated a pool deck. So 50% assumed the hardscaping that was shown, which is the driveway. And the pavilion.
So most likely, the area around the pool is gonna be artificial turf, which is pervious.
This helps me get to.
Yeah, no, I understand. So when you have the constraints of the size of the lot, it's not very deep. You can't build a very deep house. I'm not asking for any rear yard setback. I got 30 feet to the rear of the house. It's not that deep. I could pull up on my phone and show you the plan. The plans are done. So, and it's unfortunate if I have to change them because we were on such a time constraint that it's a long story on why I was not as quick as Robert Barnes. And it was out of my control, but it was a financial thing why we couldn't start as soon as he did. So we're under the gun to design the homes. So I applied for the variance, and we've designed the homes based on maximizing the building restriction lines. Because that's gonna get us the square footage that we need. It's not a large home. Robert Barnes next door to me is a bigger house than ours. Physically, square footage wise, it's a bigger house. So I just don't wanna do driveway strips, so I wanna do a full driveway. That's the bulk of it. It's 20 by 16, 20 by 18. And then the pavilion in the back is literally gonna be an outdoor kitchen counter with a roof over it. It's not a big pavilion in terms of yeah.
Thank you
So,
for clarity.
Yeah. So the bulk of the square footage is the house and the driveway and the sidewalk to the front door. I do this for a living, so I know that it gets eaten up fast. There's an air conditioning pad, there's a pool equipment pad, there's an LP gas tank pad, so there's a lot of stuff that you can't see that get eaten up. I'm shooting myself for not printing out a full set of plans now, but I thought that this was the best rendition. This site plan is accurate other than showing sidewalks.
Well, again, this site plan we're just seeing now.
Yeah.
What we were looking at before, it's like comparable.
No, I understand it. I didn't have this when I submitted that.
Question for Christian. It seems to me that when you just ran through the numbers, that he can do what is on there for around probably 43 or 4% lot coverage. Or substandard lot.
Assuming that he doesn't, assuming that he's put the tarp around.
So other houses in that same neighborhood have gotten 50%. I just don't understand the problem.
Through the chair, I wouldn't want to speculate on an exact number. These are very rough numbers because the shape of the lot kind of precludes getting exact measurements, and even the site plan that he gave us tonight doesn't have measurements on it, so it's all a lot of supposition that I would hang your motion on.
So what's
Are you even showing AC pads or pool equipment pads or anything?
on this particular site plan, it doesn't show that, but, I mean,
That's more pervious area.
I understand that. So, wow, I definitely did not expect this. I don't know what to tell you. I'm asking for 50% because ultimately, somebody is gonna come back and ask for more, that's gonna equal roughly 50%. And I understand the thought that, okay, if we give him 50%, he's gonna design right up to that very bit. That's a possibility, but everything that we want to do, I know will fit within 50% because I've done it before on a lot this size. And this is a smaller lot than most of the other lots.
Do you have a rough calculation, knowing that you have, more completed plans in existence?
Yeah, it's
When
probably
they're
somewhere,
done-
it's probably somewhere around 48%, but that's the difference between, the extra 2% is the difference between a 48-inch walkway to the front door versus a 32-inch walkway to the front door. I don't know. I mean, if you want to approve a less percentage, and then I'll come back for another variance, that's another $1,500 between the three houses.
But if you're saying that you think you could complete the plans at about 48%, then what's?
I'm just asking for what's typical for the people that have been approved. I mean, that's all I'm doing. I'm putting out almost $3 million to build these three houses, and I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, everything that we're doing can be done within 50%, and so I'm asking for 50%. I just don't understand the hang up over, say, 2% or whatever it is. If I design it and finish the hardscape and it's 49% and I got 48%, then do I spend another $500 to ask for another percent? I've been in here before asking for new construction several times with a percent, asking for a percent that didn't have everything down to the minutia. I've sat in here and watched dozens of people do the same thing, asking for a percent, where they don't have it calculated down to the very last paver that's going to be installed. So and I've applied for I probably applied for at least a dozen variances since I've been building, and I'm not doing anything differently now than I've ever done, which is why I'm so confused at the balking of what I'm asking for.
Does anybody have any other questions for the applicant?
I've done.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
No, if the variance is going to be denied, then Jack's Beach will take the lot back, and I lose about $30,000 on this property.
But the board is also able to approve the variance at a lower percentage.
But why? But what, I mean, I don't understand. It's, okay, so what if I ask for 52%? Would you say, well, why do you need 52%? Can you do with 50? I mean, I'm really confused.
I would say the hardship that you've defined so far for this lot is that it is substandard in size. The standard size outlined in the code is 7,500 square foot. Your lot is 6,300 square foot. And if you adjust your lot to a standard lot, that's 84% roughly. That 35% divided by 84% does not get you to 50%, which means if this was a full lot, you're asking more than the substandard. And even if that was the case, that's not necessarily true, but that's the minimum of like, does this even make sense given what you've identified as your hardship? And without the level of detail that we're talking about of knowing exactly what you're doing and being able to understand your circumstance, it's difficult to see this as the minimum viable use of the lot that you recognize when you purchase the lot as outlined in the development code, because your hardship is such that you're asking for more than you would get with a standard lot.
So how do people, I'm just confused because the same reasoning is not being used on other variances that have been approved for higher than 50% on bigger lots.
We do have to treat every request and every parcel of land completely uniquely. We can't
Yeah.
necessarily follow a precedent just because the house next door got the.
No, I completely understand
And
that.
there may have been, you're right, we have approved over 50% for other
So-
houses, but there may have been superseding circumstances.
So I'm
that
asking
were-
for 50% lot coverage so I can design a house, so I can build a house. I've never seen anybody come in and have to have things mapped down to the last paper.
I will kindly disagree with you because we come through the plan and we actually.
Yeah.
You may not know what we're looking at. You're looking at it from Ronnie's point of view. I'm trying to tell you what we look at as a board. We have information that seems to be accurate. We rely on recommendation of details that the plan. Yeah, I think the plans are great. As I said, I just challenged with some thoughts on it. I've never had a builder come and say, I want to build 50%.
Every single time I've been in here, that's what they say.
I'll leave it at that. And,
I mean, they may not say 50%, but they say, I would like a percentage.
Right, there's always a percentage attached to it, but it's our job to determine if that is the minimum amount necessary to achieve a reasonable building on the property. And I'm not saying that what you're requesting is.
Okay, so then my answer would be,
reasonable,
yeah, that is the minimum.
But you could build a smaller home.
Okay, yes, I could, but that's also kind of a rude thing to say with today's market. Yeah, I could build the code minimum, the planning development minimum, which is 1,200 square feet. I mean,
But
that's,
you could build larger than 1,200 square feet and less than what you're asking for now.
Other people come in and had to build less than they wanted.
I go back to the original thing, which is the issue is when people ask for this percentage of lot coverage, they know why. And it's not speculative. And I think that's the hang up.
Is there a lesser percentage that you feel confident?
48 would be the absolute. So when I went in and met with Christian, the stuff that I mapped out came out around 48. But that was before we ever did any design whatsoever with the hardscape. I had calculated basic stuff and it came to 48. And so I asked him if he had a problem with 50. He said he didn't have a problem whatsoever with 50. So I just bumped it up 2%.
But you could live with 48%.
We'd have to. I'd have to if that's what you want to approve. But what my point is, I don't understand the hang up between 48 and 50%. It's almost like it's like, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it's almost like the little kid just wants to get his way because I said so. If I'd have said 50%, would you guys be throwing around 50%? If I said 52%,
I think we're using your feedback to try to help you through this process. We're asking where you are existing today right now. And we're trying to get you to some kind of a means to the end. I mean, we're not sitting there throwing a number. We're trying to respect all of your hard work and investment in this. And we do respect that.
And I would, to that end, I would also like to say that I certainly do appreciate the fact that your plans account for, as you mentioned, ample parking, because we do see a lot of requests come through with strips, and then 6 months later, somebody
Pays right on.
makes a request.
I'm trying to head all that off at the
We
pass.
appreciate that.
I'm trying to keep a homeowner from coming in and asking for 53%. So I'm trying to build what somebody's gonna wanna buy. I mean, based on what we pay for the lot and based on construction costs, plus an insanely small profit, these are gonna have to sell for 1.5 million. And I know you can't take this into consideration, but somebody who's gonna spend 1.5 million is, I mean, I gotta build a specific, or at least a minimum square footage, and that's what we've done. So the guy that's building next to me, Robert Barnes, in order to get his square footage up, he designed a 1.5 car garage. You can't even fit 2 cars in the driveway or the garage. It's a car and a golf cart. I don't know who the heck would want to buy that house. And the whole street is narrow as it is. I don't know. I bumped it up to 50% to try to keep somebody else from coming in and asking for more, to do something different. Because I want to build something that no one's going to have any desire to do anything different. That's why I asked for 50%. I mean, if it doesn't get approved, and I don't know whether I can keep going forward with this house design, then I've got to give all 3 lots back, and I'll fold, I'll go out of business. I'm not saying that as a threat, I'm just saying it as a fact. I mean, I bet the farm on these 3 lots. I bet the farm. And I'm not asking for any more than anyone else has ever asked. I mean, it's not, the way, the reaction is almost like I'm asking for 65% or commercial 85%. And it's not, for the size of the lot and for the constrictions, even the 50 by 125 lots are easier to work with than this shallow lot. And I don't expect anybody to believe that, but it's true.
Are there any other questions of the applicant at this time? Hearing none, I'll ask that you be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards on this item?
No speakers cards on this one.
And no correspondence?
No correspondence.
Is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100009. Based on testimony and evidence provided, the request is met the standards for variance. It's outlined in section 34-286 of the Development Code.
I'll second with a friendly motion to move to 48%. Moved.
So has it been seconded as moved?
I'll second it.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded as presented. Is there any discussion?
Through the chair, if this will help at all. 35% of a standard 7,500 square foot lot on this lot would come out to about 42%. The house, just based on meeting the setbacks of the 20 and 30 front and rear and the 2 side setbacks, is roughly 50 by 45. Plus, assuming about 350 square feet for the driveway, comes out to about 42%. So the house and the driveway alone would take up roughly what 35% would be on a full-size lot without anything else.
And then we could expect 2 years later somebody to come and request to put in a paper patio to go around their pool.
Potentially, but as it's designed now, I think that, kind of, it is at 42%, and that would be the 35 at 75 if it were a full-size lot.
So you could put in a pool without.
You can put in a coupling only pool, that's correct.
Is that going
I'm just, in addition to that, as he had pointed out, there's no, that doesn't necessarily account for the bump out, it doesn't account for air conditioning pads, pool equipment pads, those kind of things, any walkways. So without that information, you can't really zero in on a specific amount over that, but to say that there's probably some leeway that would be needed is reasonable.
Well, leeway, I mean, the applicant said that he thinks when it's all said and done that it might come under 50%, so maybe, to his point, the 50% ask leaves him without having to come back for an additional variance to put in pool equipment.
Or the AC pads.
Well, you can't get a CO. But administration variances, but it's final zones. For basically, that would happen permanent. So Christian, so let me understand that, so currently, he would be without a 35% on a standard size lot, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Without,
broadly
just the house,
speaking,
approximately the house and the driveway, we would be conforming to a RS2 lot.
Excluding the pavilion shown.
excluding pavilion, and excluding bump out and any ancillary
And so
hardscaping.
And also, there's no sidewalk, as you mentioned, in this
Mhm.
drawing either.
What did you guys come up with lot coverage when you sat down with him? 50%?
Well, that's what he had proposed it as. Again, the site plan I originally had to work off of was the highlighted one. So I think we operated under the assumption that 50% was what was shown. Because there were no dimensions on the pavilion and, you know, obviously the ancillary stuff wasn't shown. Obviously, we're trying to be accommodating, knowing the timeline and considering the constraints that he has. But, yeah, I think it, maybe wrongly on my part, I assumed that that was showing 50%. I didn't realize there was an intent for other future lot coverages included in that.
Yes, currently on the floor is 50% second, right?
Yep.
And just for my own, what is 1% equal on this lot? It's what, how many is this lot again? This lot is
6,300, give or take.
So 1% equals 633 square. It's pretty small in comparison.
It is.
Yeah, so I mean, we would draw like secondary.
This doesn't, I know we can't factor this into our decision, but considering that, as the applicant said, and it's also in the staff report, that the existing lots were platted as substandard, which I know happens all over the city all the time. But seeing as this was slightly more recent, do you know if this was done in anticipation of revisions being made to the land development code?
No, these were done basically, the city, because this is part of the South District, CRA, had acquired these lots and recognized that if they were built, all the driveways would exit onto South Beach Parkway. So they created the Sunshine Court cul-de-sac so that these would have driveways that wouldn't enter onto a major four-lane road. And they just sat vacant this whole time, so the CRA and the city got together to say, let's auction these off with the intent that they would be built as single-family homes. So there wasn't really any thought process to future changes in the code, it was just, this is the space we have, and once you take the road out, you end up with a slightly smaller lot, so they combined them and made them wider to try and keep the square footage as close as possible. Because a 50 by 125 lot is 6,250 square feet, this is roughly 63 to 65 on these lots.
I think there was discussion early on, and it's been long enough that I want to resurface it, that it's not only substandard in the sense of the size of the lot, but the fact that it's a corner lot changes the requirement of setback from the side yard. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so their normal side yard requirements are combined with 15, 10, and 5, basically, or 7.5, 7.5. With a quarter side, it's 20% of the width of the property, which in this case is like 13 some change. So that setback ends up being 3.5 or so feet more than the other lots on the property, or in the subdivision.
Any other discussion?
So I think that he does deserve some relief, but variance less than that could still allow him to do most of what he wants to do. It might not be the perfect house, but it would be consistent with, I think, other houses and other variances that we've granted in similar situations.
You know,
Well, the motion on the floor is for 50%. There was mention of potentially putting forth a more tenable motion for a lesser percent. Is anyone prepared to move to amend the motion on the floor?
I would move to make it 48%.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think if we grant 40%, we're just gonna be, it's gonna be right back there.
I do and I don't. I mean, I think we should work with the plans and hardscape, and like you said, you can go from a driveway 36 to 42. I mean, that's a sidewalk, I mean, there's still ways you can work things.
I am definitely taking under advisement what Christian said, though, that the house and driveway, which is a full paved driveway, is at about 35%. Mr. Hannah's a builder, so he's going to sell the home to a homeowner. And as we've seen countless times, that homeowner, if he didn't ask for a lot coverage variance, would come back and request a pool and paver patio around it and an outdoor kitchen. And there is a very good chance that the request that they would put forth would end up back at 50%, and they would argue that they bought the home from a builder as it was, maxed out to 35%, and so they deserve some relief from code.
Okay, agree with that.
Just for clarity, the 35% would have been based on a full-size lot, so.
Right, yes.
This is 42-ish.
But if he were asking for something that equated to 35% only, I think everybody up here would have any heartburn about understanding why that rose to the level of needing a variance.
I think everybody who buys a house here wants to add to it.
I think my question or concern or interest is probably a better word, around the 48% is, if our biggest contingency on the 50 is lack of clarity of why 50 is required, I've not heard anything that has that clarity to support 48. So I think even at 48, you end up with the same question mark of why is 48 the right number, and it just becomes speculative. So I don't see the support behind 48 that lacks behind 50, other than it's just a smaller number.
The only reason I used 48 because it was referenced in the meeting that was with Christian. That's the only reason I took 48 as a meeting with where 48 we can work to. That's where I was using.
Yes, and I believe the applicant referenced that number as well.
I just don't recall.
Yeah, the square footage is pretty small,
anything
it's small lot.
To decide on something when we didn't have dimensions with coverage figured out. This is a first for me. I haven't been here as long as you guys, but I have not personally seen this request without it written down where we could actually see it on paper and go, okay, this is what he needs within a, what, 10 or 20 square feet, okay? We don't know. That's just the weirdest thing.
Yeah, especially for the builder. I agree with that.
We'll try to recognize the time frame too.
Yeah.
The city putting the constraints on the building requirement 6 months, which is pretty fast. I recognize that too.
So the motion on the floor that we are technically discussing is whether or not we would move to amend the motion from 50% lot coverage to 48%. Is there any more discussion on the motion to amend the existing motion?
Just feels confident information that was relayed between the builder and the city department, so for 48.
Okay. With that said, can we have a roll call vote on whether to amend the motion from 50% to 48%?
Todd Smith,
Yes?
John Wallen,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
No.
Jeff Truitt,
Yes.
Lexi Gonzalez.
No. So the motion was approved. So do we now want to,
Vote on the 48%.
yes. And is there any more discussion on the motion as amended?
Yeah, we have a very narrow window of.
Yeah, there's some room if the builder hits the body. He's not being disapproved for a CO or anything like that.
Right, yeah, I mean, unless it was egregious, you know, if it was at
Yeah,
50%,
right,
that would be outside our scope, so.
Okay, so there's,
Any other discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Todd Smith,
No.
John Warren,
Yes.
Owen Curling,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your variance as amended has been approved. Can we call the next case, please, which I believe is also Mr. Hannah?
Board calls BOA 23-100010, property address 3228 Sunshine Court. Motion to consider 34-337E1E for lot coverage of 50% in lieu of 35% maximum to allow for construction of a new single-family dwelling and swimming pool.
This particular house, I'm sorry, I got the whole thing.
No, you don't need to be re-sworn in. You were sworn in already, so you can just.
So this particular house, other than the hand-drawn footprint is not in a further along. This is the least far along of the three, which is why all I have is that front elevation. But I do have a hand-drawn footprint. And like Kristen was saying, the house and the driveway combined on all these first two take up roughly 42% of the lot coverage of the house, of the lot, the coverage of the lot. And the reason why I'm asking for 50% is because I've done this so many times, and I know that it works within 50%, and that's why I asked for 50%. And I know that if I ask for 45% and don't put a pool in, the homeowner, the buyer is gonna say, well, I want a pool, so then I gotta go back and get a variance for 5% to put a pool in, and the pad and all that stuff, and so I'm trying to head everything off of the pass, which is why I asked for 50%. So, this is gonna be the same debate as the other one. And the backyard of the last one and this one are essentially gonna be the same. They're both gonna have a small little outdoor kitchen pavilion, not a big gathering pavilion, something small. I apologize for not having everything mapped out to the minutia for the square footage, but we're not that far along yet with the design. But I know everything works within 50% because it's what I do for a living. And after my meeting with Christian, I didn't dream that there would be this much resistance. So, you know, I regret not asking for 52% because maybe I would have gotten 50%. But what this means is not getting 50%. I mean, hopefully when we're finished designing it, it'll come to 48%. If it comes to 49%, I won't put something in. I'll delete a sidewalk or something and then maybe put it in after CO and then or have to come back for another 60 square feet for another percent of lot coverage. So the 50% is just from my professional experience, that's what it would take. So this is the same situation.
Just trying to know, this lot is 65, they're very close, so I just comparing, this lot is 65 feet large, correct?
It's what?
65 square feet large.
They're 67 by 95.
Well, I'm saying this is 6365, the last one was 6300, I'm comparing.
No, the first two are the same width. They're the same width and the same depth.
Total square footage, I'm referencing on the notes.
No, I know. So, $67 times 95, $63.65.
Correct, and the last one's 6300, which I just repeated.
Yes, because it's got the.
You lost it on the radio.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
So when you sat with Christian, this is the least developed, you were looking at, I know you're saying you could work to 50, but when you pencil it out, you're at 48 again, or where are we at with this conversation? Same thing?
Same thing. Because I didn't have any design done whatsoever
Okay.
for any of these houses when I met with Christian. And the coverage was assuming, knowing that a reasonable dimensioned house, the building restriction lines barely make it. So there's some tight quarters. I didn't want to ask for a rear yard variance because I didn't want people behind me to get upset. I didn't want to ask for a side yard variance because it's RS2 and it said it's not 10 and 10. If it was 10 and 10, I would have probably asked for 8 and 8.
I do recognize you didn't answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, and it's not my humble experience, it's my professional experience because I do it for a living. The leftover meat of the lot, the building restriction lines, the width is good. The depth is pretty shallow, but we've made it work. All 3 bedrooms, the master bedroom is on the 2nd floor. And it's rare in Jack's Beach to find a house with a master on the 1st floor. So that's, it would have been nice to have gotten, I could have asked for more square footage or more coverage. I could have asked for a rear yard setback variance in order to get the master on the 1st floor, but we didn't do that. So
the design square footage is similar to the first design?
yes,
30, all right, okay.
yes.
Any other questions for the applicant?
But I'm not trying to be disrespectful by any means, but as a builder, I see it more than you guys because I'm out in the field and I have builder friends and I just know what's done. People leave out sidewalks and get the CO and then they put the sidewalk in when it's done. And rarely does anybody ever come by and notice it. I'm trying to head it off in the past, and I build my spec homes to where there's nothing left to desire for the buyer. The pool's gonna go in, they're gonna have an outdoor kitchen. They literally couldn't even dream of something that they would want that would require more lot coverage. And based on the size of the lot, that's where the 50% came from, so.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing. Any speakers cards on the item?
No speakers cards and no correspondence.
And is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak? And if so, please fill out a card before you leave. Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100010. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
What makes you want to, I guess the question goes back to 48 or 50, in the conversation between the staff and the builders, 48. This lot's a little larger.
I think that there certainly are builders who have grappled with, do I put this in or do I put this in? And they give up the illusion of being able to have the perfect design. And I think that he's boxed himself in a way because he's insisting that he wants to have the perfect design. And I think there's some hard choices that he can make and still have a desirable product. And so the 50% is not the minimum amount that he needs, in my judgment. So I would ask you to entertain the possibility of decreasing
value Mr. Hannah's feedback about the fact that he's only asking for lot coverage, without encroaching into any setbacks. I do think that that, is worthy of our consideration, but I do still, see where the fellow board members are coming from and feeling like 48% is a more accurate reflection of the actual minimum of what can be achieved on the lot. So, any other discussion on the motion to amend the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
John Moreland,
This vote is,
It's just whether to amend the motion on the floor.
okay, yes.
Owen Curley,
No.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
No.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. So the motion has passed, so the motion that we are now considering is for lot coverage of 48% in lieu of 35%. Is there any discussion, further discussion on that motion?
Still don't understand why we're trying to approve something with, we don't have accurate information. And just to possibly avoid a possible somebody coming in later, that's somebody else's job to come in later. It's not his job.
Any other discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
No.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your variance as amended has been approved. Can we call the last case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100011, property address 3274 Sunshine Court. Motion to consider 34-337E1C1 for a front yard setback of 6 feet in lieu of 20 feet minimum. 34-337E1C2 for a combined side yard setback of 12 feet in lieu of 15 feet minimum. 34-337E1C3 for a rear yard setback of 10 feet in lieu of 30 feet minimum, and 34-337E1E for lot coverage of 50% in lieu of 35% maximum to allow for construction of a new single-family dwelling and swimming pool.
And you won't need to be sworn in again. You can
Okay,
just-
so this particular lot is the most troublesome of all of them, and I'm really puzzled as to why the city didn't do a blanket percent with them from the start, but that's neither here nor there. This is an extremely difficult lot to design a house for, and you can see the front page. Those little pink tick marks represent the different BRL variances that I'm asking for. So the front yard, we'll address the front yard on the next page. 6 foot front yard sounds pretty short, but it's really not as short as it sounds. If you see that pink arch, that's the 6 foot. The house actually sits back about another foot from that.
Is that the, I'm sorry,
That's
that's the
the
raise to the driveway in the front? You say you think this one?
What's this right?
Yeah, so that's the actual porch. Look it out a little further, that's just.
We're gonna lose the applicant in the microphone if he's at your seat instead. Just for those that are gonna watch the video.
So and plus the physical walls of the, what's that? The physical walls of the house don't come out to that 6 foot mark. It's just a column, and it's just to support a roof. So the line of sight is way further back than the 6 feet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So also the house itself, the bulk of the house is at the 30-foot rear yard setback. The garage, in order to get an adequate square footage of the house, we would like to put room over the garage, a bedroom over the garage. If I detached the garage, I could put it 5 foot to the backyard, but I don't want to do that. So I pulled it 10 feet off the rear yard and put a bedroom over that. And it's attached to the house.
I saw that in staff note creating a hardship with attachment requirement.
Yeah, and then to the south, if you're looking at it like this with the cul-de-sac on top, on the right-hand side, that's an abandoned roadway, Seminole Road. So there's 25, 30 feet to the south before you hit the fences to the backyard of Riptide. So there's nobody to the south that I'd be encroaching on. So that's where we've got 7 instead of 10 on that side. And the reason we ask for that is so we can get an adequate distance off the you can see a little vestibule going from the garage into this, like a mudroom, a little itsy bitsy mudroom. So I'm going to beg you for 50% on this one, because this one is just, it's an animal. I don't know anything other to say. It's a difficult one.
So is that road, it's not a built road, right? It's just a right of way for a road?
Where, on the right hand?
You said on that side.
On Seminole, yeah, it's just grass.
It's just grass?
Yeah, it's
It's
abandoned.
an easement, in essence.
Yeah, the city's retained it as an easement, but it's abandoned. It's an abandoned road. They'll never put a road there.
Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, you can kind of see here, this is the
But-
area right here that was Seminole Road. It's platted right away. That's just never been constructed.
But the bulk of the house meets the 20-foot front yard, and it's, like I said, it's just the column that supports the roof over the front porch that gets close to that 6-foot mark.
And forgive me for repeating this, since I think you already said it, but just so I'm clear, by choosing to make the garage attached, you had to conform to stricter setback
Correct.
standards.
Correct. If I detached it, one, I couldn't put a bedroom above it, and then it would be a smaller house than what anyone would want to buy at these prices. And then I could also put it 5 foot off the rear setback. And the gentleman behind me, I don't want to do that to him.
And this area, the attachment area is basically like a
It's a walk-through, yeah. It's a mudroom. It's probably, I don't have the dimensions on here, but it might be 7 by 7. It's small. It's enough for kids to put their backpacks.
Okay.
And all I have to ask is, and beg on this one, just don't do the 48% on this one. I don't. We worked long and hard to figure out how to get a house on this lot.
Just looking at this plan, are you still planning to do the pavilion here, or you don't think you have space for it?
No, so on that one, this.
Remember, sir, that we do need your voice.
This is quite an far.
That right there, that's outdoor,
Okay.
covered outdoor. So if you look,
at with the cul-de-sac at the top, at the very bottom, you'll see BRL, 10 foot BRL. The arrow of that is pointing to an open air covered patio. So it's got a small little flat shed roof on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right there is the front.
Yeah, and just a quick, and I know the other ones have passed, but just a quick note, this is a bigger space than the other pavilions. Literally, the other pavilions are gonna be maybe a 10-foot outdoor kitchen, a grill, maybe a refrigerator, a place to put food, and then it might be 4 feet with 2 foot more of overhang, so you could stay out of the sun, but they're basically the bare minimum that we can get a covered outdoor cooking area. And we thought about asking for rear yard variances on those so we could get an attached pavilion, but we said forget it, we'll just do that and ask for 50%. I'm gonna do my best to get it within that, but this one, and I apologize for not having the exact square footages down, but again, we're trying to design these 3 houses in a very short amount of time, and I just don't have this. I never thought that it would be this, come to this, but, so my apologies.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I will now open the public hearing. Do you have a speaker card?
We have one speaker card, but they do not wish to address the board.
Yes, I do.
You do want to, okay, I'm sorry, it's Lisa Millis.
As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak now that we've opened the public hearing, and you will need to be sworn in by the clerk.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and your address.
My name is Lisa Mills. My address is 3317 Heron Drive.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
My name is Lisa Mills. I'm sorry. And I live at 3317 Heron Drive North.
Thank you, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I, like you, expected to see a survey with the actual plan on the survey, with the dimensions. I mean, when I built my pool and other structures that I had to have a variance for, I didn't have it when I applied for the variance. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's no sizes or, there's nothing here. This looks even bigger than what this is.
Ma'am, since members of the public are bound by the 3-minute time limit, I want to make sure that you're given your time to speak uninterrupted, so.
Okay. So I understand that pretty much everybody's getting the 50% now. I mean, that's pretty standard. However, this lot is actually bigger than the other lots. I realize the cul-de-sac comes up on this lot. The cul-de-sac is very, very small. Trucks cannot even turn around in it. I mean, they have to do 10-point turns to even get around in there. I don't know how the construction on this house, being so close to the road, is even gonna occur. Everything's gonna have to be in the cul-de-sac. There's no other way it's gonna be done. As far as putting a house on here, I understand having the 50%. I'm not even gonna argue that, because the point is moot. The fact that the garage, I mean, why can't this house be a house like everybody else's house, which is a house with a pool, garage is underneath, I assume. I don't understand having attached structures, which forces the point to expand the borders around the home. So my property line is compromised. The man in the back, it's the worst for him, because you're supposed to be, I believe, 30 feet. There's 10 feet from the garage to his house. So there's so many things that aren't more than just the coverage of this property. How long is this driveway? There's nowhere to park other than this driveway. Nowhere. So, I mean, the road is so thin, you could barely get 2 cars through it. I mean, you have to see how bad this cul-de-sac is. And I failed to see how this is even 50% with the way it's designed. So I understand that, but you're expanding the borders now. Now you're coming into our property areas where we're supposed to have that distance. I mean, that's what the other builder has 43% coverage on both his homes from what I researched. He isn't asking for a pool, he hasn't asked for anything extra than that. He's not even going over the 50. So this doesn't match any of the other plans at all. This is a whole different ballgame here. And I disagree with that. And my neighbors disagree with that, the neighbor behind me, the neighbor next to me. Unfortunately, they didn't come, but I have spoken to the neighbors and they agree. This is just, it's way too much house for this lot. And I don't even know how big the house is. Like, you give a plan like this with absolutely no dimensions on it, I have no idea. I could stand there looking at the property, I can't picture anything because I have no dimensions. I don't know how big this house is, I don't know how big this garage is. you know, does it cover 50? Is it gonna be over 50? I'm gonna make sure it's under 50 while it's being built.
Thank you, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Would the applicant, no other speakers cards? Is there anyone else in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item?
So the attached.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a correspondence?
It's the same person.
Oh, okay. Mr. Hannah, would you care to address the comments?
Yeah, so, can you pull up the thing that we submitted with Christian? So that right there is 100% identical to the footprint that I gave you. Absolutely identical. That's actually bigger than what I gave you. If you look, I gave her my copy, so I don't have it to look at. So the house, I can pull it up. We can't put the garage in the main house, under the main house, because you'd have 1,000 square foot first floor. So I don't know where she lives. Do you live in Riptide?
Yes.
Okay, so the house is no closer to her house than it would normally be. It's actually further. If I detached the garage, I could readjust everything and I could have it 5 foot from the southern setback and 5 foot from the rear setback. It would be a 15-foot tall structure instead of a 22-foot tall structure. Plus the road, the road is still there. So I've got the entire abandoned road plus her backyard. So, and she mentioned that the house is 10 feet from the rear neighbor's house. That's not true. It's 10 feet from his rear property line, but it's further away, 5 foot further away than it could be. I have a house in my neighborhood who got approved to have his garage 5 feet from the rear, 5 feet from the side, and 2 stories. And I was all for it. It's a beautiful house. It's an absolutely beautiful house. That's way beyond what's allowed through the Planning Development Code. And nobody spoke out against that. The only thing I can say is these houses are going to raise, they're going to, if I could show you some of my other houses, you go, wow. But they're going to make the neighborhood. And as far as the design, the footprint is pretty much all, it took us a long time to get to that footprint. The only thing we could do is to reduce the square footage of the house and make the second floor smaller. The first floor is not that, it's not that big of a house. They're all around 3,300 square feet, which is, can you live in smaller? Yeah, you certainly can, but that's pretty much the same size that everyone's building right now. It's what people want. We've given them the amenities that they want. And somebody mentioned, or she mentioned Robert Barnes, the guy building next to me in the other lots. The reason he only asked for 43% is because he's not putting a pool in. And guess what? I guarantee you somebody's going to come back and ask for a variance for a pool. Then it's probably going to be 53% because he's maxing out everything else at 43%, where we were a little bit below that. So anyway, all I can ask is that you please give me the 50% on this one because of the irregularity of the lot. If I push the garage further back, all that means is the driveway gets longer, which means more lot coverage. The garage size stays the same, longer than the other driveways on the street. The other ones are only 20 feet long. My truck is 22 and a half feet long, so I couldn't even park my truck in those other driveways.
So with the plans that we're seeing here that you gave us tonight, how many cars do you estimate would fit in that garage, and how many cars would fit in the paved driveway total?
2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway. And they're, the normal driveway. That's longer than the other driveways, but it's not like 20 feet longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's a two-car driveway.
It's a
not a
two-car
four-car
driveway, it's a two-car wide driveway, they're all two-car garages, so they're two side by side. And yes, it is it's a tight road, but it's the same size road as pretty much all the other roads in the neighborhood, or they would have taken more out of the front yard than 25 feet. I'm not sure if a fire truck, I mean, you're not allowed to design a road. You can't build a cul-de-sac unless a fire truck can turn around in it. That's one of the first code things. But fire trucks have a very tight turning radius. So my guess is a fire truck could turn around in it. Could a UPS truck? I don't know. I have no idea. My truck is a full-size long bed F-350 and I can turn around in it very, very easily. And I even pull a 20-foot cargo trailer for all my tools, and I have no problem turning around in it.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
All right.
So how big is this house?
Ma'am, I'm sorry,
I can't answer the question.
the public hearing portion of the meeting has been closed. But questions can be directed to the applicant or to staff after the meeting. So is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100011. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-26 Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I kind of understand the fifth or sentence one with the attachment requirement on the garage.
The cul-de-sac.
Oh, the cul-de-sac, yeah.
Right, this is beyond just a standard, beyond a typical substandard lot where it's smaller in area or width. It also has some pretty unique shaping issues to deal with. And I do appreciate that in this case, I think there is a clear demonstration that he made an effort to make a minimum use of the property in putting in an attached garage that would prevent him from building into smaller setbacks. So while he is requesting a variance, it is for a more minimal development of the property overall.
Through the chair, just to clarify a few things, the two previous houses were rated 45% lot coverage.
48.
The two from the other builder were granted 45% lot coverage without any rear amenities, and the cul-de-sac is 40 feet in diameter, which is a standard cul-de-sac width.
Which is standard?
40 feet for the diameter.
Any other discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Shular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
No.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes, your request has been approved. Moving on to the planning department report.
The only thing is our next meeting will be on a Wednesday, the 22nd of March, and we have 4 cases scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Want that?